So we are live. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the fourth episode of the Selenium Community Live. My name is Pallavi Sharma, and I have with me today Michael Mintz, the creator of Selenium Base. Hey, Michael, how are you doing today?
Good morning, Pavali. How are you doing today? I'm doing
I'm
well.
doing very well. Thank you, Michael. It's an honor to have you here, Michael, with us. And Michael joins us from the Greater Boston area, and he is going to talk about his creation, Selenium Base, which is basically a very interesting web automation framework, which basically provides you various solutions on testing, web scraping, and many other things, which is built over Selenium Python bindings. So, Michael, I will be handling it over to you to take it forward. And just a small note, we will be taking question and answers at the end of the session. Although as you guys are joining us from either LinkedIn or YouTube, you can leave us a comment and we will get to know it. But Michael is going to talk for about 30 minutes or so, and in the end, we will be taking the question and answers. Okay, Michael, over to you. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Mintz. I am the creator of the Selenium Base test automation framework. Basically, Selenium Base is an extension of regular Selenium, but with a lot of additional capabilities. Let me do a screen share presentation so that I can live demo a few things. All right, one sec. I'm going to share my entire screen. And hopefully the screen is going to pop up. Pavali, can you see the screen appearing?
Yes, Michael, I can
Okay,
see it.
great. Just checking that screen share is working. Okay, great. So let's
Sure.
jump over to the Selenium Base GitHub page. So essentially, Selenium Base is an open source framework, and you can find it on GitHub, github.com/seleniumbase/selenium base. And right now it has around, I'd say, 9,000 GitHub stars, so a little bit more than that. But essentially, this is a lot of the extensions of Selenium that you'll find here. So for instance, there's a recorder where you can record and generate tests, which kind of replaces Selenium IDE. There's like a dashboard, or technically various dashboard options so that you can see results from tests that run. And technically, this integrates with a tool called PyTest. So for the Python users in-house, PyTest basically provides a powerful unit testing framework for Python, and you can extend PyTest in order to basically collect and run tests and generate fancy reports such as this, where you can get screenshots next to stack traces and know exactly which tests passed and which tests failed. So dashboards and reporting and lots of features that are missing out of the box with regular Selenium can be found in Selenium Base. I'll run a few live demos right now just so you can see an example. So if we do pytest myfirsttest.py, it's going to run in, and it goes very quickly unless I slow it down. So one of the pytest command line options added to it is --slow, so that you can see exactly what a test is doing when it's not running at full speed. Because when it runs at full speed, it runs pretty fast. So this is just a simple e-commerce example on probably a website people are familiar with, the sauce demo, which Selenium talks about a lot in various examples. So if we're running that in headless mode, so we do -- headless, and then we run that, it's going to run a little bit faster. And so you can see that if you want to slow it down, you can. If you want to get things moving really fast, you can get that whole test running in under 2 seconds. So there's also a feature called demo mode, which is going to basically highlight the actions that it does as it runs the test. You can see here, it's like highlighting what it's asserting, and then you can see like a display at the bottom right hand of the screen where a pop-up appears showing you exactly what the test is focusing on at that particular time. So these are just some of the many PyTest command line options that are added into Selenium Base for people who are using Selenium Base as a test framework. Now, since it's been several years, I've had time to expand it beyond test automation and into more powerful capabilities. For instance, with Selenium Base, you can also do like stealth mode, which basically allows you to bypass captchas. So if I do an example such as Python raw gitlab.py, you can see that it's going to go in and it's going to bypass the Cloudflare CAPTCHA. So it's just an example of basically going in and being able to do anything that it needs to do, test automation, CAPTCHA bypass. So if we go into the folder there, you'll see that there's like just lots of different examples. Let's see if we do, let's go back to the previous folder. So if we go to the GitHub page, you'll see that there's a lot of different stuff there. So there's a whole examples folder there where you'll find most of these being using the PyTest framework. Anything that starts with test underscore or ends with underscore test.py, that's basically using a PyTest structure. And basically, PyTest has the ability to auto collect tests at runtime that fit a certain like mold. So for instance, if I have inside a test, it starts with, test underscore, PyTest will capture that. And then if I have a class that inherits base case, which technically inherits unit test.test case, then that's also going to be auto-collected via the PyTest thing. So for instance, if I do PyTest -co-q, you'll see that it's going to loop through and show all the tests that it found via PyTest collection. And also, let's see, so there's lots of different examples that I could run because there's a lot here. So for instance, there's also a mobile mode. So if I do PyTest test Skype site and then I do -- mobile, you'll see that it's automatically going to use the mobile device emulator where it detects that you're using Android, and then it's going to run a mobile test. So there's lots of different command line options, as you saw here. If I do PyTest-H, you'll see that those command line options will be added in to the regular PyTest command line path. So you can see here, there's a Selenium-based section, Selenium-based command line options, where you can set the browser. So by default, it's going to use Chrome if I don't set it, but otherwise I could use Edge, Firefox, IE, Safari, etc. So for instance, if I wanted to run one of the tests with Edge, I could do PyTest, my first test -- Edge, and now it's going to run that. Oh, I haven't updated Edge in a while. It's probably up. There we go. So there's the Edge version, and then you can like combine various options. Like I can do Edge with slow mode, and now it's spun up an Edge browser, and it's doing all the same things that it did before, but now it's using that. So basically I can go through some of the various command line options that it has, because a lot of this does not come out of the box with regular Selenium. Like with regular Selenium, you wouldn't have the command line options at all. You'd have to modify the script directly in order to make changes. However, with Selenium Base, since it's the full framework, you've got command line options that allow you to change everything. So for instance, other than the regular, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, IE, Safari, there's also a Chrome for testing option that you can use, because there's a special Google created Chrome for testing, which is slightly different than a regular Chrome browser. And there's also Chrome Headless Shell, which is like the fast version of headless mode, because Chrome recently came out with a new headless mode. Before, when you'd set command line options, you'd do like a headless equals new in order to get the new one. But in order to get the extra speed back, since the new version, even though is more realistic, the new Chrome headless that's now included with regular Chrome, the Chrome headless shell is faster because it has fewer features And therefore, it's not the exact experience as regular Chrome headless or regular Chrome, but it can run tests at a faster speed. So let's see. So you can also configure various environments, for the test that you can then access in a test using self.env or self.environment. You can also set data, capabilities. Let's see, let's go to something interesting. Change let's see, you can skip JS waits because basically Selenium base automatically has automatic special waiting built in, not just waiting for the ready state of the page to be complete. There's a DB reporting feature, as you can see here, so that you can store data in a local MySQL database. There's an S3 logging ability if you set that up. You have automatic screenshots when tests fail. So there's some deprecated options, but now anytime a test fails, you're going to have the automatic screenshot. So for instance, if I do pytest test_fail.py, and it's going to look for something that's not there, you'll see that it created a latest logs folder. So if I open that, you'll see that it's going to have basic test info on what failed. So for instance, you can see that I ran a test and it was using Chrome 134 and it took 2.67 seconds. And the last page that it was on was this, and you have all the timestamp and all that, and the trace back. And I was looking for a selector div pound army of robots, and that wasn't present after 1 second. So that got into the stack trace. So this is just an example of a detailed log report that you'd get for every failing test. All the basic info, as well as the trace back, stack trace, etc. And then if we go back here, you'll see that there was the screenshot that was saved when the test completed, and this was the last page that it was on. So all this, the standard reporting and all that, that's all baked into the framework. So you can get all the details that you'd need from failing tests, and you can even create a dashboard out of that. So for instance, if I just set the dashboard option, so I'm going to do pytest test fail -- dashboard. Now it's going to create a dashboard with that. So if I do open dashboard.html, you'll see that, well, I ran one test. So technically one test ran and one test failed. And then you have the logs and the data that is there. So if I also do pytest -- dashboard and then -- html equals report.html, you'll see that it's also going to combine pytest HTML reports. So if I open dashboard.html and actually go to report.html, because that is the pytest version, you'll see here it has a little bit more because it has the stack trace and the screenshot that was generated via the test. So that is an example of, say, including the dashboard or the HTML report. It gets fancier if I run multiple tests. So let's do pytest test suite.py -- dashboard -- html equals report.html. And here's another command line option. Since I'm running multiple tests, I can do -- rs to reuse the browser session so that it uses the same browser for all 4 tests. So I'm going to run it like that. You'll see it's going to go through and do various tests. And you can see it actually ran, so 4 tests in total, 2 failed, 2 passed. If I open dashboard.html, and I'm going to open this in a Chrome browser just so that you can see a little better. If you click on, you see the 2 failed tests and the 2 passing tests. I can click in onto the data that appears, and I get all these links here, such as the basic test info, where it shows the info I showed you before: last page, duration, browser, driver, timestamp, date, etc., and the whole trace back and the stack trace. Or I can even click in and see the screenshot that appeared. So technically, you can have the full, reporting infrastructure with the tests that you run. And you can see here, here's a dashboard. If you also go to the report.html, it's going to look similar, but it also has the PyTest HTML reporting features, which include the stack traces and the screenshots included directly in that report. So that's just one example of basically being able to use the additional dashboard and reporting features that are provided. So that is the dashboard. Let's go back into here because there's a lot of other different command line options I didn't cover. So for instance, you can connect to a Selenium grid by specifying the server, -- server equals server name. And then if you have a local Selenium grid, it would just be 127.0.0.1. And then the default port is 4444. You can also set proxy options. So if you want your test to run on a proxy server, you can set a proxy string, and the format is either server name : port or username : password at server name : port, etc. You can also set the proxy bypass list, advanced options if you know what you're doing, proxy pack URL. Let's see, you can set up proxy driver, multi-proxy. Oh, you can change your, for instance, here's something interesting. You can change your user agent string. So if you want to modify that from whatever you have normally, you can do that. I believe I already showed you mobile mode. That's just using -- mobile. And that basically gives you the default settings for the mobile device emulator. If you don't set the mobile device metrics with this option after that, it's going to give you the default values of whatever is configured in your config file. So for instance, it could use that as your mobile setting. So then you can also pass in additional Chromium args that aren't already included in the Selenium-based command line options, as well as Firefox args, because that's different. Let's see, you can load a Chrome extension zip file or a Chrome extension directory. There's also an options, basically a Chromium feature where you can disable features. That's an advanced option. You can also change the binary location if, say, your browser binary is not in the default location. Also change the driver version that you use, because otherwise it will use one that matches the browser that you have. You can set the page load strategy from either normal, which is default, to eager or none. You've got headless mode. I believe I showed you that already. Let's see, you've got headed mode. You've got XVFB, which that basically allows you to run Selenium tests on a headless Linux machine, because XVFB basically gives you the virtual display so that you can run things easily in GitHub Actions where there's no display involved. Change your locale code, the XVFB metrics, because sometimes in your virtual display you might want to modify that. Let's see, yeah, you can set a time limit so that a test fails if it takes too long. Let's see, slow mode I already showed you, where the test runs a little slower so you can see what it does. And demo mode, I also already showed you that. That basically highlights all the actions on a web page that you're doing so that you can see exactly what the test is testing. Let's see. There are a bunch of things. There's like a ad block feature where you can block a few display ads from certain web pages that you go to. You can set host resolver rules. There's quite an extensive setting for how that's set. Block images, set do not track. Let's see. There's the recorder stuff. Probably don't have time for that. You can disable JS, disable the content security policy. Let's see. A bunch of, I'm just going through. There's some deprecated options because this has been around for a long time. Set the remote debugging port. That might be useful if you want to be able to see what's going on inside a Chrome browser from a separate Chrome browser. The -- dashboard I showed you. Oh, this one's interesting. Final debug, final trace. So basically, if I do pytest test fail.py and then I do -- ftrace, it's going to run the test until there's a failure, and then it's going to open up debug mode. so that you can actually go in and maybe make some settings. Like I could do self.get PDB. Let's see, if I do self.get current URL, you can see that I can run regular Selenium commands from the API here. So it just helps for debugging, so that if you have a test failure, you can basically keep the browser window open and start performing actions like clicking on things, etc. So final debug could be useful for debugging. There's also --PDB, etc., where if I do --PDB, it's going to leave the test on the very last line where it failed. So I can basically go up and say that it failed on this assert element line here. And then I can basically do the regular Python PDB debugger stuff. Let's see, so I can set, yeah, there's a lot of options. You can use Chromium's guest mode, dark mode, open the dev tools when the browser starts, set window position, set window size. When the browser starts up, you can set the browser window to be maximized. There's just a ridiculous amount of options. For instance, yeah, there's like a Selenium wire integration where you can include that. There's the external PDF option so that it downloads PDFs instead of opening up that like site when you go there. So yeah, that's like the different command line options that are available, and that probably took a while to go through because there's just a lot of different features. But let's go run in another example now. So let's do, if I do PyTest test suite, because this is a useful feature. So if I just run this suite, which has 4 different tests, it's going to basically spin up a new browser for each test. But as I told you before, there's the --rs option, which speeds things up. If I do that, then all the tests run within the same browser window. And that basically gives you a fractional runtime, because instead of having to spin up a new browser for each test, it's basically keeping that browser in. So let's see. So let's go into my first test since we ran that earlier. So my first test was the Swag Labs one. Let's run it quickly so you can see it. If I open it up, now you can see some of the code that's in here because I haven't covered that. So here's a Selenium-based API example, for instance. So it's using PyTest. It's using base case inheritance for this particular format, but there are lots of other different formats, and I'll cover that soon. So for instance here, self.open with the URL, and then you can type into this selector this text. So for instance, with the sauce demo, you type the username, the password, and then once you log in, I can verify that the inventory list is appearing, and that is using self.assert element. You can also assert the exact text that appears inside a certain selector. So for instance, I want to make sure that products appears within this CSS selector. I can click on the backpack. I can click on the shopping cart item, and then after I can verify that, you know, it says your cart there when I click there. And then I want to assert that the backpack appeared in the cart item because I added it to the cart here when I clicked on it and added it to the cart. So then I click on checkout, and then I type, you know, first name, Sunnybase, and then automation, and then fake postal code, and then I click to continue. And I verified that I was on the checkout overview page, that there was a backpack, and I asserted that there were that the price is there. And I click finish, and then I'm asserting thank you for your order. Assert element, you know, the image is there, and then the logout, sidebar link, etc. So these are just like the simple, you know, all these different methods that you can use. If you go to the Selenium-based GitHub page, you can see there is an APIs link, and there you'll find a lot of different APIs that you can use. So all these different like method calls that you can use. Like for instance, you saw there's self.open, and there's a few duplicates in order for backwards compatibility, and when people switch between frameworks, etc. You know, go back, go forward in the browser. You can use if statements like if is element present, then do this. There's at least 500 different methods that you can use, like the click nth visible element. Like if you have like tons of elements that are the same, have the same selector, you can click on maybe the fifth one. Like if you have like 10 checkboxes in a row, click like the seventh checkbox, etc. Let's see, check if unchecked, hover and click, drag and drop. Actually, some of these I can demo in the test demo site. So if I open test demo site, that's another good one that basically shows you various advanced methods such as hover and click. And then there's also select option by text, because sometimes there's like a select field where you have different options you can set. And then you can also click visible elements. So this one here will click all the different elements that match that selector. So if I run this test, so you can just get an idea of how it works. PyTest test demo site.py. You can see it's going to go through and it's going to fill in and it goes very fast. So I'm going to actually slow it down so you can see it a little better and I can talk about it a little better. So here I'm typing text into the text field. Then there's going to be a hover and click action, clicks a button, it moves an input slider, it changes a select drop down, it clicks say multiple checkboxes that have the same selector, it does a drag and drop there, it clicks a link, and then it's like highlighting things to show you that you can highlight actions within the page while it runs. So that's just one of hundreds of examples that you can see here. So the API here is quite advanced, and yeah, it pretty much has any method for anything you can think of for doing. If we go into the options command here, so for instance, it's going to talk about some of the various PyTest command line options. If you're running your tests through PyTest, you'll see that there are some included ones that are useful, included options, and then you have all the Selenium-based added options that are here. So there's a large list, and it's probably not the full list here, but you saw it more when we did the PyTest-H, so that it listed all those from the command line. So also you can see that it's just basically, how to debug tests. So there's --PDB, so that if there's a failure, it stops at a breakpoint. --trace basically starts the debugger right when your test begins. So if I do PyTest test demo site --trace, it's going to basically open up the debugger immediately, and I can do, say, n to open the page. I can do like line by line. Okay, I'm going to assert the title, assert the element, and I can, let's see, move that around so I can type text into that text field. You can see that it filled there. And then there's a text area here next. So basically allowing you to enter the debugger right when you start the test, which is useful if you want to try something. So if I want to be like, okay, I want to do self.click. Let's see if button does anything. And you can see it click the button. So that's just like debugging line by line, so you can immediately do things. So then I'm going to finish that off. Goes through that. So Python debugger options, C to continue, N for next, S to step through, etc. Let's go back in. So that's debugging tests. PDB is the one where you want it to stop on failure. Then there's like the ftrace one, so that it stops at the end of the test no matter what. I think that's the first one I demoed, but I probably meant to demo this one instead first. So let's see. You can also multi-thread your tests. So there's the say N8 option. So for instance, if I have a test suite, PyTest test suite.py-n4, it's going to basically spin up 4 different Chrome browsers, one behind another, and run all those tests. Or otherwise, it would have to do one at a time. Or there's the reuse session mode I showed you earlier, where all the tests run in the same browser window, which also speeds things up. So let's see. So that is multi-threading tests, which is quite useful if you have to basically run a lot of tests at the same time. The dashboard, I already showed you. The PyTest HTML reports. You can set language locale codes, etc. You can change the driver version. Basically, lots of different ways of customizing tests. And there's quite a few other things you can do. So for instance, there's a website tour builder. So if I do cd tour examples and I do pytest maps intro.js tour, you can see that one of the more advanced features is the JavaScript injector, which basically allows you to inject JavaScript into any website to modify things. So for instance, here, you've created a Selenium-based tour, and you can do search box here and basically create a tour on any website. And there's a few other different like advanced integrations that you can do because there's a lot of power there. So let's see, I'm gonna probably wrap up here since we're running out of time, but essentially there's the tour mode, different things you can do for tests. There's the CAPTCHA bypassability. I didn't have time to cover the recorder, but essentially you can record a test instantly. It basically replaces Selenium IDE so that you can go in and then be able to generate the test on the fly. So let's see if people have any questions in the chat here. I'm going to stop the screen share and check with Pallavi. How are you doing?
Hey, Michael, that was a very interesting talk, I have to say. We do have some questions.
Sure.
Although, if you'd like to take a few minutes and talk about the recorder, we can do that if you have the time. That's up to you. You can let me know.
You know that there's probably like dozens of features I didn't cover at all. Like
Okay.
this usually takes 3 hours to demo like all the basics of
Okay.
the features. Like I basically covered the PyTest syntax, but actually there is one more thing that I need like maybe 3 more minutes to show because that
Sure.
is quite important. Let me go back to
Sure.
the
So,
presenter because
take
that
it easy.
is, one second, I'm going to share my screen again because there's actually one thing very important that people should know because not everyone is going to use PyTest when running their test, but there are different formats so that you can basically change that structure. So this is the 25 syntax formats page from the Selenium-based GitHub page. I basically showed you mostly what the PyTest syntax looks like because you're running a test that looks like this, and it inherits base case, and base case inherits unit test.test case, but it doesn't have to be like that. And you can also customize that so that you can create a subclass and have more flexibility and create your own methods within there. So for instance, create your own login method that you can then call because you've extended base case. There's also the SB PyTest fixture option for people who are familiar with PyTest fixtures. Instead of using base case, you just load the fixture, and then you also get all the SB methods here. So this is what the SB PyTest fixture looks like in class. And then if people want to have the page object model structure, they can create this is an example of that. You can do login page here where you create a method, and then this is how you'd call that. So you've got the page object model with the SB fixture. That's what that looks like. I'm just going to zoom through because there's a lot. There's using request to get the SB fixture. So here, this is like a PyTest thing, using get request to get the SB in class, overriding the driver via base case if you want to completely override the default options that are provided by Selenium base. There's overriding the driver via the SB fixture. Let's see. Then there's, I basically also translated Selenium base into 10 different languages. So if people don't speak English at all, they can basically use Selenium base with the Chinese translations, for example, here. And basically all the APIs have been translated over so you can run everything as is. Here's base case with Dutch translations, French translations, Italian translations, Japanese translations, Korean translations, Portuguese translations, Russian translations, Spanish translations. And then we've got like the Gherkin syntax with the behave BDD runner. So the test will look like this, and you can run it exactly as is, and it will do all the things like you saw earlier. Let's see. So then we have Selenium-based SB using the Python context manager. And this is a newer format in the last few years, but it's gained a lot of popularity so that people don't have to run things with PyTest. They can just run things with pure Python, and then it does all the same things, but you don't have to do everything with PyTest anymore. So that's the Python context manager here. And you can add options here. So for instance, if you want demo mode, you just do demo equals true instead of dash dash demo. So that's just an example of basically being able to set your options there instead of on the command line like you would for the PyTest formats. Then there's the driver manager, which basically gives you the same driver that Selenium would, and you can set options there as well. The Selenium base has all the Selenium base APIs. So here, like when you're using the Selenium base SB, the Python context manager, that's going to have all the 500 added APIs that Selenium has. And I've also extended Selenium's raw driver format recently with those methods too. So you can just do like driver.click, etc., which is a simplification over having to find an element by a CSS selector and then clicking it. Basically shrinks it down. You've got the driver manager via direct import. So it looks like that. You can come back to this later because there's just so much to cover. I don't have time for all that. You've also got the CDP driver, which basically is a new format that uses the Selenium-based APIs, but instead of using the Selenium API to talk to the browser, it's using the Chrome DevTools protocol to talk to the browser, and it's using like async for that in this example. And there's also SB CDP sync API without Selenium that also talks to the Chrome DevTools protocol directly in order to do actions. And essentially with regular Selenium, there's a method that you'd call like execute CDP command, where then you could execute commands within your test. But this basically allows you to use the CPI in full. All right, so that's probably all the major stuff that I wanted to cover here today, but there is quite a bit more, so definitely check out the various tools there that you have, etc. Let me jump back to the screen here. All right, so here I am. So I can probably take questions now, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, we do have some questions. So I will just read them out.
Sure.
Okay. So the first question we have is that how does Selenium base handle flaky test and retries?
So it automatically has automatic waiting built in so that if the element isn't available, it'll wait up to the default timeout. So for instance, 10 seconds. So
Okay.
it's if you try to click on a button and the button's not there yet, it's gonna keep waiting. You can change the default timeouts if you don't like that, but let's say that's the default if you don't set anything. If you just do click element, and then it's gonna wait up to 10 seconds, and when the element appears, then it clicks on it. So you no longer have to add any special other things in order to wait for the element. It's automatically included. And if you want
Okay.
to rerun or retry a failing test, there's a PyTest command line option like dash dash reruns so that if the test fails, it'll just rerun that, because a lot of the features are part of the PyTest framework, which already has its own unit test based plugin add-ons for doing more things, such as retrying failing tests.
Right. So just to set the context, if we are using Selenium with Java, we do that with TestNG, what Selenium base is doing with PyTest. So that might help people to understand, those who are users of other unit test frameworks for different languages. Another question we have is that Selenium base is updated to cope with browser upgrades. Okay, so how frequently is Selenium base updated to cope with browser upgrades, Selenium version, and all other dependencies?
So the Selenium base basically pins the Selenium version. So if I do a screen share again,
Sure.
we'll, one sec, share screen. clicking in, share the entire screen. All right, so if we go in, all right, it should take there we go. Okay, so we go in, there's going to be a setup.py file here. So basically every Selenium version pins a Selenium version. So for instance, if we scroll down here, you'll see Selenium equals 4.29.0. And therefore, whenever there's a new Selenium update available, I'll check Selenium base to make sure everything's good and then repin it so that there's never a discrepancy between uh, something that changes and everything breaking. So everything's always going to be pinned to the Selenium version. As for the browser being used, that's just whatever is installed on your system. So if you have Chrome 134, it's going to use Chrome 134. However, you can change that with the Chrome for testing option where you can set exactly which Chrome for testing option you use. So for instance, I can do space get Chrome driver, and that's automatic, and I'll like download Chrome driver, etc. for that. But there's also Chrome for testing downloads, so I can do space get Chrome for testing 134, and then it's going to download the Chrome for testing version there. So it's going in and it's grabbing it and it's going to install it. And then if I want to use that specific version for Chrome for testing, I would do let's see, pytest, my first test.py, -- Chrome for testing, and then I can do, it'll basically use the version I downloaded. So if I do that, you'll see that's going to use Chrome for testing, and it's whatever version I set. Otherwise, it'll just use whatever browser is installed on your system. All right, so let me jump back into here. Okay, so yeah, so you can set the browser version that you want if you're using the Chrome for testing option, because then you can download any version of CFT. And with all the special Selenium-based command line, tools that are there, you can basically download that version of Chrome for testing, this version of Chrome driver, etc. And you can set it so that it can be non-matching versions, but otherwise it's going to automatically make sure that you have the same driver version that matches the browser version, because otherwise you might run into issues if you're, say, have Chrome driver 135 with Chrome for testing 134, for instance. So it'll automatically take care of driver management, all that. That's all like taken care of automatically.
That's very interesting to know, Michael. So it's independent of the Selenium manager which Selenium has implemented, or
Yep,
is
it
it?
has its own Selenium base, has its own Selenium base driver manager, browser manager, etc. It's gonna, you can control everything there. It's a totally separate tool.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Mhm.
So we have another question. We have around 2 more minutes left. Do you have some more time to take questions, Michael?
Oh yeah, they're all the questions you want at me.
Okay, great. Then let's have it. Okay, so the next question is multi-threading testing impacted by the browser we choose? Like, is there a difference in execution speed if we are executing it on Firefox versus Chrome versus Edge
I think
versus
Chrome and Edge are going to be faster. I think maybe Firefox multi-threading might be slightly slower, but it's just a simple, dash n that using the pytest command line option. Then you set the browser, and then it spins up all those browsers. So maybe I think Chrome and Edge are a little faster than Firefox in terms of multi-threading, but otherwise it's still pretty fast.
Okay, thank you. Another question we have is, does it self-heal?
Self-heal. Well, it has the automatic waiting, so it'll automatically wait until like it needs to. But if the selector changes, there is a recorder feature that sort of lets you auto heal tests, but I don't have time to demonstrate that now on the demo, but there is something there for like a follow-up for later.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Okay, is it possible to draw shapes using Selenium? Would you like to take it?
Draw shapes like on a canvas. I think they're probably thinking of using like PyAuto GUI to move the mouse. You can do like mouse down, and then you can like control the mouse and then mouse up. So there is a PyAuto GUI integration, and that can be found in the UC mode and CDP modes that I didn't really quite cover fully today. But
Okay.
there's separate README files within the Selenium-based GitHub page for that, so that you can work with PyAuto GUI to mouse down, move the mouse up in order to do things.
Okay. Okay, Michael. I hope it answers your question. Can we manage user credentials with secret key masked values?
Yes. So basically, you could, for instance, with GitHub Actions, there's a thing called GitHub Secrets. So I actually created a YouTube video about that not too long ago. You can create a GitHub secret, and it's stored safely. And then when it's accessed within the GitHub action that's calling it, then basically no one's able to see what the secret is. So someone could have a password, they put it into GitHub Secrets, then your GitHub action runs, and then it uses it. Therefore, you can have continuous integration using it. But GitHub Secrets, that's like not part. That's like that's separate to Selenium base. That's like Microsoft's thing with GitHub Actions. But you can use GitHub Actions with Selenium base. Actually, I forgot to cover that. Let me quickly do a quick screen share. That might be useful to know. I'm gonna go back into the screen sharing thing here. See if it goes in. All right, here we go. So can you see my screen? One sec. There we go. Okay.
Michael. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So GitHub Actions, I've got like nightly tests running, and whenever there's a change, like, say merge pull request, it'll run things in the cloud, and you'll run like tests. So for instance, test demo site, that's one that we ran, and it'll run that iframe tests, etc. There's like a lot of different tests that I run. It runs pretty quick. And you can, oh yeah, that's one of the inspect HTML features where you can like find various things that are up with a web page, etc. But essentially, as I mentioned before, there's the XVFB that automatically is set up so that you can run web automation within GitHub Actions. And there's lots of other different repos that I have where you can do that as well. I think, so for instance, I think this is a more advanced one where if I click into here, I was using Selenium base in order to, let's see, scrape prices of Nike shoes from the Nike website. See, I have to probably, actually, I haven't updated this one in a while, but let's see, raw chat GPT. Oh, here we go. So here's one where I did a chat GPT query within Selenium base. So I did compare playwright to Selenium base in under 178 words, and it went to chat GPT and queried that. And if you're wondering what this script looks like, that was in the separate repo here, raw chatgpt.py. And it basically went into ChatGPT, made the query, and did that. And because ChatGPT has Cloudflare protection, it had to bypass a CAPTCHA with that, but Selenium base has that ability. I think I modified the script a little bit for GitHub Actions because on Linux, there's a slightly different UI there. But essentially, yeah, you've got GitHub Actions running, and you've got the different modes I didn't really quite talk about, but there's UC mode, which basically is like a stealth mode that lets you bypass CAPTCHAs. And there's also CDP mode, which uses the Chrome DevTools protocol, and there's also the stealthy ability behind that, and it can run on GitHub Actions as well. So let me jump back into here, stop screen share. So yes, so GitHub Actions, there's a lot of different separate features for that and separate features for stealth mode, etc. That's how the chat GPT was able to be queried from the GitHub Actions script, because normally Selenium would be blocked, but because UC mode modifies Chrome driver a bit in order to take away a few like variables that make it detectable, it then makes it stealthy and all. So with a few modifications, you've got UC mode and CDP mode for the stealth. So essentially, it's like your test framework. It's a stealth framework. It's you can create a website tour. It's got the Java and scripting framework where you can modify any website you want, such as when you created the website tour. So there's really like 10 different frameworks within this one framework doing all the things that people want. And yeah, it's just got all these command line options or just options that you can use to configure it.
That's very interesting to know, Michael. Selenium base does appear like one power tool for a lot of problems, a solution to a lot of these problems. I have to answer a question. Yes, the recording for this would be available in our YouTube, the
Sure.
Selenium HQ community. It would be available after the session is over.
Of course.
Uh, okay, so the question is from another user. Is it possible to read through database tables to read OTP sent from application using Selenium based code?
Well, if you're reading from a database, that's just going to be using Python. And since it's like a Python framework, there are all these Python libraries that you can add on to it so that you can use like, Python, MySQL, etc., in order to read from a database. So if you want to read from that, it's just if you can do it with Python, you can do it with Selenium base because Selenium base just uses Python.
Right. Thank you for that answer. Michael, I have a, question. As WebDriver BiDi is coming into picture,
Mhm.
will and Selenium is moving into that with Selenium 5, and a lot of implementation is already available. Selenium base automatically shifts to WebDriver BiDi when Selenium shifts to WebDriver BiDi completely.
Yeah. So once Selenium starts using it, I just make any modifications that I need to do, and then the BiDi is available. So all that, whenever
Okay.
it's available, I test it, make sure I repackage anything as needed, update
Right.
the dependencies, and then it's good to go.
Okay, that's great. So I think we are almost done for the day. We will take last one question. Can we integrate AI tools?
Of course, yeah. So basically, anything that you can do through the UI, like Selenium, can like make those controls happen. And of course, if there's a Python API, then you just like add it right in because you'd import whatever Python library you need, and then you get those AI tools as needed.
Okay, thank you. So if you all want to reach Michael, Michael, one last question. I have a question, if that's
Sure.
okay. Uh, what are the end users of Selenium base? I know because of Selenium and it's so popular in testing, but what about web scraping or any other popular users of Selenium base you have come across, users have come forward to tell you about it?
Popular users, well, use cases. Well, essentially, you mentioned like web scraping. Well, there's the UC mode and CDP mode, which
Right.
lets you bypass captchas, which essentially, if people want to web scrape data, I think I demoed a little of
Right.
that from the GitHub actions I ran like 5 minutes ago, where we did a chat GPT query and then we took the result of that and we outputted it inside the GitHub action that ran it. So essentially, if you can web scrape chat GPT, you can pretty much bypass anything.
That's good to know. One last question I'm taking, Michael. What kind of customization options are available to generate snapshots while running tests?
Yes, so there's a few different methods without going directly back to the API. Like there's like a save screenshot command where you can save a screenshot anytime. There's also automatic screenshots on test failures. I demonstrated that earlier where a test failed, and then we went to the log folder and we saw like the basic test info where it showed the last page that was on the stack trace, etc. And next to that, there was a file that had the screenshot, etc. You can get that for like any part of the test. You just do like a one line, there's a call for that and then it generates that at any point in your test.
Okay. Thank you so much for the answers, Michael. Thank you for your time. So, Selenium base is also a channel available in the main Selenium Slack space. If you would like to connect to Michael, you can reach out to him on the Selenium base Slack channel space as well as the main Selenium Slack space. Are there other ways to get in touch with you, Michael? Would you like to share that?
Sure. There's like besides like the GitHub page and like the regular Selenium channels. I also recently created a Discord channel.
Okay.
There's a link from the Selenium based GitHub page. If you just like go into the issues, there's like a section for a Discord link. and then
Okay.
there's like 700 people in there right now. So
Oh, that's great.
there's various different ways of reaching out. And there's also because I also have my own YouTube channel. I create various YouTube videos. People like often leave comments on that. So there's like the YouTube, the Selenium channels that you mentioned earlier. There's the Discord, etc. So there's lots of different ways of reaching out.
Oh, okay, that's great to know. I'm sure people will know how to find you there, and I'll take that information from you and put it because we do share blogs after every event is done, so we can put all that there to help the community and the project. So that's all, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you very much, Michael, for your time and in giving us such an insightful talk about Selenium base and what all we can achieve with it using the programming language Python. This is built over Selenium Python bindings, and it falls under the umbrella of WebDriver ecosystem. Any parting thoughts, Michael?
No, just if I've answered all your questions, then yeah, if people have more questions after this, then reach out to any of the channels mentioned earlier. For instance, Selenium, Slack, etc., where people can ask anything they want because there's a lot of different things I didn't get to cover. Normally, it would take me like 3 or 4 hours to go through like every single individual feature, and I only had like maybe like 20% of that at most. So there's a lot more than just the PyTest command line options and the test structure. There are different tools in there that use, say, the JavaScript injector to do more things. For instance, there's a presentation builder so that you can, have your own presentation within your web browser. So there are different JavaScript libraries that I didn't get to cover that are integrated into Selenium Base for doing advanced things.
Okay, so maybe we can have another advanced community session on Selenium base whenever you have time, Michael. We can
Maybe, yeah,
schedule.
that'd be great.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can do that. Okay, Michael, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for sorry. Okay, Michael, thank you. Thank you very much and thank you everyone for joining us. The recording would be available on the YouTube and more information will be shared at the respective channels.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
Bye,
very much,
Michael.
Falabi, for having us here.
Thank you. Bye.